Go. Okay, welcome councillors to this meeting of the Regulatory and Hearings Committee for 29th of November. I'm going to skip all the housekeeping stuff and we're going to go straight into hearing from the submitters. And our first submitter is Nikki, who's online from Forest and Bird. And Nikki, the floor is yours. You've got, well, we've allocated 10 minutes, so if you want some questions, you'll have to allow a bit of question time. The floor is yours.
Kia ora, good morning. Thank you very much. Great to be here today. My name is Nikki Snowink and I'm the Regional Conservation Manager for Forest and Bird for Canterbury and the West Coast. So it's really nice to be here and see you all today. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on the draft Keeping of Animals bylaw, which Forest and Bird submitted on a couple of months ago. Thanks very much for that opportunity too. We'd just like to congratulate you on joining a long and what's now quite a long lineup of councils around New Zealand who have chosen to include cat provisions in your bylaw. So that's really awesome to see. As I mentioned, we did submit, and I'll take our submission as read. And I've also read the officer's report, which was really, really helpful. Thank you very much. According to the officer's report, 60% of submitters supported a 2-cat limit, which is really great, and Forest and Bird suggests that this is a really awesome mandate from the community for the council to enable effective regulation of owned cats in the district. However, as we stated in our submission, we opposed the restriction of the proposed cat regulation to solely urban areas of Bulla district. That's consistent with what we've done all around the country because cat nuisance is not solely an urban issue. And districts like your one have many small townships that don't meet the definition of urban, but where residents own cats. And furthermore, rural communities often bear the brunt of urban cat nuisance via illegal dumping of unwanted cats in remote parts of the district. I'm not sure if that happens in your area, but it certainly does happen in a number of other districts around the countryside, thereby creating a nuisance outside the urban boundary. Forest and Bird recommends that removing the urban qualifier in the cat provisions of the bylaw, thereby making the regulation apply district-wide. Forest and Bird wasn't the only submitter to request the removal of the urban qualifier. In fact, it would be a lot clearer for cat owners to have regulation that applies district-wide, and particularly for the officers responding to a nuisance complaint. If the regulation applied district-wide, then it's much more straightforward to apply a one-size-fits-all approach to cat ownership, rather than urban cat owners having to be responsible and residents of smaller towns not having the same obligations. And we think this is important, particularly in places like Karamea and Punakaiki, I suppose, where there are lots of biodiversity values is particularly worth protecting in national parks and conservation land. And finally, we recommend reducing the age of desexing from 6 months to 4 months, subject to the advice of vets. And this is aligned with the professional welfare groups like the SPCA, etc. Desexing provides welfare benefits to the individual cat, and it's an important tool to address populations with problems with cat overpopulation. Making a meaningful dent in cat populations would not only reduces the likelihood of nuisance, it also reduces the burden on welfare groups that have to manage the influx of unwanted kittens. So yeah, that's pretty much we have to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be heard, and once again, congratulations for having cat provisions in your Keeping of Animals bylaw. Cheers. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Nikki.
Hello, I'm Joan Howard. Could you just clarify your comment about bringing the age of desexing down to 4 months when you say subject to the advice of vets? I'm just sort of wondering if you have subject to the advice of vets, then it's hard to have a fast rule around an age.
Yeah, I guess the welfare groups are all saying 4 months is good, but it depends on the size of the cat. Like if it's a very small cat, then you might want to wait a bit longer, but and that would be where the advice from the vet would kick in. Some vets say 6 months for a smaller cat is better for cat welfare rather than doing it at a younger age where it could cause other problems if you do it too early. That's my understanding and the conversations that I've had with vets about this. So I guess there are some cases where you might want to wait till it's 6 months.
Yeah.
How do you envisage that you could put that into a rule though?
Well, yeah, I guess when you know, philosophically, a cat, we recommend putting 4 months in, but if a vet recommends that you don't do it till 6 months, then that you'd probably have to let that go. Yeah, for the welfare of the cat. 4 months is the sort of preferred approach, but if a vet says different, then yeah, depending on the cat.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Mr. Chair. I go hunting on dock land and stuff like that, which is on the fringes of our small communities. Are they on board? And I see a lot of cats in there, and I usually try and clean them up if I can. Are they dogs on board?
I believe so. Last year, there was a select committee process where a member of the public put forward a petition for a cat management act, and we discussed this much the same provisions that you're putting in your bylaw, but it would be a national approach to managing cats. And I understand the Department of Conservation presented to that along the same lines as Forest and Bird and some of the other welfare groups, with the idea of differentiating between owned and unowned cats. And that's my understanding. That's Doc's approach, though. That's my understanding from the select committee process last year. I'm not sure how that plays out in the regions, but yeah, it's really feral cats are becoming a huge issue all around the countryside, and there's sort of quite a bit of ad hoc management going on around the countryside of them. So it's tricky if you aren't managing people's pets to be able to differentiate between owned and unowned cats. And that's what provisions in the bylaw and sort of a cat management act would and could do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just your view, Nikki, on the cost of the microchipping. Is that something the owners should wear, or is there some other funding source for that?
I'm not too sure how that happens at the moment. I'm not sure. Is it expensive? I don't think it is that expensive, but I guess it speaks to the value of the pet, if people value their pet, then they shouldn't mind bearing the cost of this procedure if it's a valued animal in their family.
Yeah. Okay, and just in terms of your district-wide versus urban, the draft proposal we went out with was for urban. So in order to go district-wide, we would need to resubmit the draft proposal.
Right.
So, but I understand that the select committee was recommending to government for the nationwide cat management.
That was the recommendation in the end to try and proceed with it if possible. Yeah.
So just giving you a bit of a heads up, it may be that we might have to wait for that legislation to come in to go district-wide rather than going out and redoing this, given this is the second time we've put out a draft proposal.
Right. I think a number of submitters did submit along the same lines as us to make it district-wide. I do believe, yeah.
But I think the legal advice would be that the change is quite a marked change, and therefore and that's the reason why we've come out the second time, because after the first round of submissions, the councillors felt, from the submissions that there should be some major changes, and this would probably class as a major change.
Right. Yeah.
So just giving you a bit of a heads up on that.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
yep, we'll do our best to get a Cat Management Act, but I wouldn't hold my breath. So I'm really glad that you guys have got a bylaw with cat provisions in it. So yeah, step by
Okay.
step. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Awesome.
And
Thank you
you're
very
welcome
much.
to stay on and listen, or thank you very much.
Excellent. Best wishes, and thanks again for the opportunity to present.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Mark, Pitchfork, is he here? No. So what I intend then, we'll go on, go back to the housekeeping, if you like. And first, there's apologies, and we've got one from Deputy Mayor Basher and Councillor Webb, who was trying to zoom in, but obviously can't. So there's no others. Are there anybody heard from Ned? No. Okay, somebody like to move those two apologies? Councillor Farlett, seconded Councillor Weston. Those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Members' interest is item number 2. Anybody got any financial or non-financial interest to declare? No cat owners or? Okay, we'll move. Somebody like to move that there are no disclosures? Councillor Farlett, Councillor O'Keefe. Those in favour? It's unanimous, carried. Right, thank you. Now we go to the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of October. Any corrections to those minutes? Anybody got? No, no corrections. Somebody like them? You'll move. Yeah. Fine, we'll move, and we've got a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Grafton. Those in favour? Against, carried. Just a little bit of an explanation, I think, is warranted. Remember at the hearing for the waste management, the plan was that we would hear and then we would meet again on the 22nd. So I was advised prior to the 22nd that all of that extra information that we required to make a decision on the waste management wouldn't be available on the 22nd. And so the plan was to defer that decision straight to council, and it was going to council today, but obviously there's still some work to be done on getting that information. So my understanding it will go to the meeting on the 12th of December. So just Mark, welcome. You can sit, stand. Yep.
Yeah, I'll sit down.
Okay, thanks.
There's a lot of people here. Hello.
We are all friendly.
Oh,
Most of us.
just be friendly today.
Okay.
Yes, I remember Tony. I've worked with you.
Right, the floor is yours. You've got 10 minutes, so your presentation and question time. So
okay, I've only been over this once because I hurt myself last week working. So I was up late last night. Just went over it then, which I'm a couple of minutes late for you guys, so apologies. Okay. I'd like to start off today by giving a little background to myself. My name is Mark Pitchfork and I'm a self-employed tradesman. I've been living on the coast for just over 3 years. Yes, I'm a newbie, and rent over in Seddonville while I do my house up in Nuckawa. I work all over Bylaw, but most of my work is in Westport. I love animals, I love nature. I have 2 British bulldogs, and I work hard to rid my land of all invasive species and predators. I had a part-time job in fruit fly trapping, so some biodiversity experience, and volunteer each year for the wasp wipeout programme. I also worked for a year as a gardener and groundsman. I love this area and only want the best for people new and old in the place we all call home. Enough about me. I'm here to talk about cats and this new proposed bylaw. I'm not a cat hater. I believe every person in this room today has cats at home or has lived and shared a house with cats, either through parents, partners, or are the proud owner of one. They're tremendous company for many, many people, both old and young. and they are very low maintenance animal to care for. You don't need to walk them every day after you come home from work. Like I do my dogs, you don't need to feed them a huge amount. Let's say a little tin of food and some biscuits. You don't need to put a fence up, stop them running away. You don't need to register or microchip them or clean up their poo, as they will probably go to the neighbours. Might even go to the neighbours for food, who knows. Cats do as they please and when they please, good for them, but we need to control their natural instinct to kill. Feral and domestic cats kill birds, skinks, geckos, birds, weka, kiwi, birds, bats, weta, and insects. Anything that can't defend themselves will probably die, especially at night in their sleep, unfortunately. Cats reproduce often and with huge litters and get regularly dumped by horrible humans without a conscience or a shred of responsibility. None of this is the cat's fault. It is ours collectively, and we need to control cats, both the wanted and unwanted ones. Before I get to my personal opinion on the proposals, I'd like to quickly talk about our province. First, I'd like to talk about the province of the New Zealand Buller. This is from the Buller District Council website. About Buller District. With an enviable climate, laid-back lifestyle, and friendly community environment, the Buller District is a great place to live, work, and visit. Our district is unbeatable in its diversity. Our 8,574 kilometres square boasts 2 national parks, 1 forest park, and 2 heritage areas, all offering the opportunity to experience peace and tranquility or excitement and adventure. That's from the actual website. Just over 8,500 kilometres square we have here. We have Paparoa National Park at 430 kilometres square, Kahurangi National Park at 4,500 kilometres square, that's the second largest national park in the country, and Victoria Forest Park at 2,060 kilometres square, that's the largest forest in the country. If we add them 3 together, that's 7,000 kilometres squared. That's a lot of green land. No one else in the country has figures like that. We are just passengers in a huge forest. And I think Buller, as a district, has a huge opportunity to be a leader in New Zealand in the protection of native species. We already have 1080, and I, for one, have never heard or seen a possum since I've lived here because of this. I believe they were here all the time before, and I've only ever seen maybe 2 dead on the road. I would like to see not just urban, but the non-urban areas have this bylaw applied to them. The non-urban areas, I believe, are even more important as domestic cats can go feral, as we all know. This does happen. RNZ ran an article stating there was an estimated 2.5 million feral cats. That's just feral cats. Getting all cats desexed, microchipped and registered is a wonderful idea. I wonder why there would be no fines for non-compliance for the above. That was within this things I was reading regarding this meeting. If there are no consequences, then I'd estimate half people won't bother. All of this could possibly be a waste of time. Things need to change now, and we have to hold flouters of the law accountable with large fines. We have to be serious about this. Could we maybe give some consideration to enforcing to keep cats indoors at night? It is a fact that cats enjoy living inside, and to keep them in at night, when they fight, hunt, kill, and reproduce the most, is to reduce all of the points of this revision. I understand this isn't realistic, but it is possible, and I believe should be considered. To summarise what I've said up to this point, all change is good, and the more change the better. Charles Buller himself was a hugely progressive politician and lawyer, so let's follow his lead and really push through protection of our native species to as high and as far as we dare to go. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Mark. Questions? Councillor Clark.
Mark, how many dogs did you say you had?
2.
Why do you not think someone would have 2 cats if they keep them inside?
I believe that you should be allowed to have 2 cats. I'm not 100% against cats being outside at night, don't get me wrong, but that's when they do the most damage. That's a fact. So yeah, it'd be good to bring them in line with dogs possibly, even though they're two very different animals.
Any other questions? No? Thanks, Mark, for your time and effort. We'll be deliberating towards the end of the meeting, once we've heard from all submitters, so you're welcome to stay on and listen, or you'll hear our result at some stage anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
See you.
Welcome, Margaret.
Hello, yes.
Right.
Thank you very much for your time today. I decided after years of being a councillor that we are in a situation where we sometimes only hear from a few people to do with bylaws and all those type of things. So I thought, well, this one here actually annoys me more than anything else, but probably for not the reason you're thinking. I wrote very quick submission just before the timeline finished. My situation is different from everybody else's. And at the holiday park, I've got 5.5 hectares in the rural, in the residential area. So it's the equivalent of a rural block within the town. And if I put my hand up, I will break the bylaw very easily. I'm looking straight at Sean. Sorry. I'm doing it already because my problem with the bylaw is basically it's the wording, it's the terminology of it. You've got per property. So I've got 5.5 hectares, so I'm allowed 2 cats. Well, right now I've got 7. Not mine, not all mine. I do have cats. I have the neighbour moved out of the house and moved across with a partner. Her cat didn't like that, it moved in with us. We feed the cat, not a problem. But some of my semi-permanents also have animals. So if it was per property, that's where I have the issue. If it was per household, because I have individual households within the holiday park. So in effect, I have people who have moved in over a period of time and they have wanted to get a pet. So under your bylaw, they can't, the potential bylaw. And I don't believe that's fair or just for them. And that's how I have the other animals around the camp. I have there's dogs, there's other cats, and I've actually got 3 older people who enjoy having their pet. So under the bylaw, I'm not going to go for an exemption just because I'm going to get growled at, but they're individual people. They have their individual household. That's how they've chosen to live. Some of them are in big caravans, some are in big buses. They look after their pet, they adore their pet, but under this bylaw, they can't have it. And I don't think that's fair. The same applies, and my thinking, before I decided to come along, it was more of, we're also in a situation where you've got retirement places here in town. So I don't know, I think they have 1 cat at O'Connor Home, and that's their choice. But you've also got pensioner housing here. So you're now going to have 1 property, because that's what it is, and you have 2 cats. So the lady in room 1 can have a cat in room 9, and the people who want to move into other ones, well, they've got a pet, or they're going to get a pet as a companion, because some older people, they don't necessarily have family here and things like that. So this bylaw, in my eyes, makes it unfair. So you've got to choose on one of those pensioner units that you've already got and you already own, and the people of the future, sorry, no pets. And you're in the situation also where you've got elderly people who need to move into a smaller place, they need to downsize, they need to get care and things, but they're going to get a pet, or they already have a pet and now they can't move in because you've got the bylaw. Or do you have an exemption just for retirement villages or for pensioner housing or for the holiday park? And I'm just asking for fairness, it's the wording. So it does say per property, and I know I am the exception with 5.5 hectares, but I would like to see something checked on the wording. And I do know that it actually started years ago on this policy about roosters, and we've gone to chickens, and cats eat the roosters, so it's fine. So we've gone full circle. But I just think the wording of it needs tightening or tidying. And if it was per household, you've also got other properties within the district, or within the urban area here in town, that they do have parents and then grandparents in a granny flat. But they can have two. But if the family already had two and the grandparents needed to move in, and they had a cat, straight away it's outside the bylaw. So I'm thinking of future proofing more than anything else, other than the fact that I'll do whatever I have to do at the holiday park. Sorry.
Thank you. Questions?
Margaret, have you taken the opportunity to look at any other councils' bylaws and see how they word that?
No, I haven't, but I have checked with a couple that of other holiday parks that do have semi-permanent people, and some of them have quite large numbers. They do allow pets. Obviously, the pets have to be looked after, and they are, but the cat chooses where it wants to live anyway, and they're usually very spoiled and they get very large. But it's, I don't know what their bylaws say. No. And listening to the other chap, I just heard the end of his conversation about feral cats are different and they're just out in the wild. Because of the 5.5 hectares that I have got, we do have, it's, how do I put it? We have like a sanctuary. We've got grey herons. We've got 2 possums that I would actually gladly go and shoot, that literally travel around the trees. We've got a number of birds that are lorikeets, as well as the bird life within the camp, because we have got the trees and all the rest. Cats are fine. We don't have any problems at our place, or with the neighbours' animals either. So that's digressing slightly.
Other questions? You realise that we did inherit this from the council that you set up.
I know. It started as roosters. You've gone to cats.
In terms of, there is provision for exemptions, and you mentioned that. It is probably what we'll do during the deliberations is get the staff to give us a bit of a rundown on, if we went to household, what other implications there might be, and so it'll be a toss-up between household or exemption. But either way, you'll be fine with your cats on your holiday.
Yeah, because it also comes down to how many dogs we're allowed. Is there a limit on dogs?
Yeah, you need to apply if there's over, I want to say 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But is that their living, visiting, or dog show weekend?
I would be surprised if it's that specific.
If somebody really wanted to pull nails on it, they could actually come and complain that a dog show weekend there's too many animals on the property. If somebody wanted to be ultra pedantic.
And, from your experience on the council, most of this is sort of self-policing. We won't be having a cat police.
But none of us want to actually have something that sits there and is over your head that potentially could cause problems that's actually not of your doing in the first place.
Yeah.
So when it said per property, that's why I was here, because it's 5.5 hectares and the equivalent of a 100 square section around town.
Sorry, Keith.
So with the exceptions, fine, Tony. Say your example of if you've got 2 cats and your mum and dad move in with you with their 2 cats, isn't that already existing? It's not new, because you're able to keep those animals to a certain until they live out their natural life.
I would think no, because if they're new to the area or new to the district.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just around that because
I guess the point is that there is provision to gain exemption, for special circumstances.
Yeah.
I can see your point. Any other comments, final comments? No? Thank you. Good to see you back around the table.
Yeah, well.
Mr. Eadie, floor is yours. You can.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, councillors, Mr. Mayor.
There you go, floor is yours.
Yeah. I just had someone read through the amendments to me, and I've taken it on board, and still hold the firm opinion that we have 2 cats residents in the urban areas. Yeah.
So that's what we're proposing in the redraft, yeah?
Yes. And certainly no roosters in the townships or urban areas.
As you just heard from ex-councillor Montgomery, the roosters were the main target of this bylaw, and they've been sort of superseded by cats, but
Yes.
the provision is no roosters in urban areas under the proposed bylaw.
Yep.
So you're endorsing that?
Yes, please. And probably no pigs either, really.
No pigs?
No pigs.
Well, there is provision for pigs.
Is there?
And we were just talking earlier about a number, and we're thinking that maybe 2 might be a number in urban areas, and you're saying none?
Well, I didn't see the point really in people having pigs in urban areas, but I'm flexible on that. Yeah, whatever's decided. The outcome of the bylaw, there's a lot of work's gone into this.
Yes, it has.
And a lot of good work has gone into it. And but I'm flexible, yeah. On the matter of pigs, I suppose. If you want to keep them in the backyard or whatever, I don't have a problem. Originally, I was opposed to it.
But you'll be aware that there's an overriding provision that any animal that becomes a nuisance.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether the bylaw says there's 2 pigs allowed. If they're a nuisance, then they have to be dealt with.
Yes.
Under that clause. Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions to Steve? Councillor West.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So Ross, with the pig side of things, if you had a pig on your property, you would not need a compost bin, would you?
I would not, sorry.
Need a compost bin. That would save lots.
Already have one.
Yeah. I take a compost bin.
I'm a bit lost on that one, sorry. 4 months.
Any other question, Councillor Howard?
Ross, have you got an opinion about cats in non-urban areas?
I can see the same nuisance value, because those areas predominantly are pretty well, how would you say it, they're well cared for as far as trees and shrubbery and that goes. They're sort of in the rural areas. There could be quite a big nuisance, but they're also, you've got to take into account that they can be of extreme benefit too, keeping the rodent problem down and that sort of thing. But again, yeah, I can see that there would be a problem in some situations. I feel it's an education thing. How do you go about rounding up cats and securing cats? It's almost impossible. We have meetings of about 8 to 10 on the front verges, council verges some mornings in urban areas, and you know, whose cats are they? It's very hard to decide which one is which. Yeah, I suppose there could be a problem in a rural setting. But on the purpose of my submission really was mainly just the urban situation. Yeah, thank you.
No further questions? Thanks, Ross. You're welcome to stay on. We've got the SPCA zooming in as the next speaker, and then we'll start deliberations after that.
Thank you all. Thanks very much. All the best.
No, okay. So we've got the SPCA due in at 10 past, so we've got a few minutes. I think we've finished all the housekeeping for the meeting. So the plan is, once we've heard from the SPCA, we'll start deliberating with the idea that we're going to get a recommendation from today that'll go to the council meeting on the 12th, whether to adopt or not. So do we want to start deliberating, I guess, that in terms of the household versus the property? Have you got a comment, Sean?
Just a quick point of order, the council meeting on the
Really, thanks.
It's an interesting one. I don't know if you have any extra comment. I mean, I definitely get the point. So I guess it could be dealt with by an exemption if you had that issue and you were in aged care housing or a campground, then you could possibly bring that application yourself. But I certainly get the property versus the household. I'm just trying to think whether that would create an issue, and I don't think so. You have a property, but you've got what's the most common? You've got your home, you're allowed your cats, and then you might have elderly parents move in with another couple of cats. Is that an issue, or I don't know? Have you got any thoughts on that problem?
I'm just trying to think back as to why we use the term property, and I think it was one of the things that the lawyers picked us up on, because the original one that I sent to them did use the term dwelling, and the lawyers didn't. Obviously, they thought that it wasn't appropriate. However, New Plymouth has gone through with the use of dwelling, and there just needs to be an interpretation of it at the front. So it is something that can be done. Alternately, we can make applying for an exemption easy, just making sure that it's on our website, that you've got a form that you can use, that it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it would be considered, the particular circumstances of each one would be considered. So that, there's sort of the two options.
Okay.
I would probably want to check with the lawyers as to why they changed it from dwelling to property. I suspect it's just a definition, easier to define a property. It's a legal property. They helped us with the definition by putting up any parcel of land that is occupied or unoccupied. So parcel has a legal term. And I suspect it was more about how do you define what is one dwelling, is how we want to.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest, and then regardless of the outcome of our deliberations, whether we choose household or property, that between now and the council meeting, you actually come back to the council meeting with
Be part of that report.
part of the report. Yeah. Councillor Howard.
Under the census, they must have a definition under dwelling, so I would have thought anything that lines of the census should align perhaps with this policy. Because that's a habitable sort of unit.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I think that we probably need is, what are the unforeseen outcomes of using household versus property? Because I've just got this scenario in my mind that if you're going to visit somebody who's got 10 cats and they say, well, somebody lives in that shed and somebody lives in that shed, and they could become households, if you like. Yeah.
Right. So through you, maybe that it would become something like legally habitable.
Yeah.
Under the Building Act.
So if you come back to that council meeting with that, that'll be good.
Sort of back it up, my thinking around the property versus household is you get the inconsistency through the other matters that bylaw addresses, don't you? So, because the bylaw is not just about cats, it's about a lot of animals. Yes. So property is a very consistent language. If you've got chooks on the back part of your section, then that's your property that you're responsible for. If you introduce household, it's another definition that only applies to cats, or does it also apply to alpacas?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. We use the term property throughout for poultry, pigs, beekeeping, livestock. So yeah, it would be an addition rather than a substitution, and it would have to therefore only apply to cats. Because we certainly don't want 12 chickens on each household that's got, say, it's got 3 units on it. It would be quite loud.
And Councillor Keith.
So what is a caravan deemed as? dwelling or property, so what's, so I'm saying as far as Margaret goes, so how do you class that?
The chair, yeah, good question, boy, we're gonna get in deep into the whole, dwelling and then building consents and caravans, and I probably don't wanna go down there. Again, I think we'll flesh that bit of advice out, but I think for the terms of this, I think we just have to have if it was bespoke for cats, and a supplementary definition of dwelling and make that quite tight, otherwise we could see a problem.
Well, the Mayor's pointed out that the rest of the bylaw talks about property, so we need to figure out whether we can have a separate definition for cats or not. And then probably it'd be good at that meeting, Bronwyn, if we had a process for exemptions and how quick and easy it would be, if that's the way around it for the pensioner housing and the motor camps, etc.
And the cost too, because every time, staff time around doing sessions.
Yeah. Councillor Reedy, you had your hand.
Oh, this was over here first, please.
Mr. Chair, I see dwellings mentioned in the glossary here, and it says building, tent or vehicle or any other structure. So it is mentioned in the glossary.
Okay, okay.
And I would be much in favour of making the dwelling rather than exemption, because if you have people, even it can be simple and low cost, sometimes the stress factor can be quite large. So I would be very much in favour of changing it down.
Yeah. So, Councillor Reedy.
Mr. Chair, I have to thank the Chair Margaret for bringing this up. I really appreciate the significance of it. We do have multiple, how can I say it, multiple dwellings per property around where people live. They're not part of the original house. They could call them sui or something for rating purposes. If we find them, that is. But we have a situation where that particular person has one or two cats, and it also raises a question about dogs. What if they have a dog?
Yep.
So we're actually digging deeper now than what we originally intended, but there's certainly some definitely some credence behind the dwelling. And if I was had a place, I know people who do that, why can they not have a cat or a dog when they move into that particular dwelling? I suppose it then opens the door again for having a shop. But that's up to the person who's renting that particular dwelling out. That makes sense. No cats allowed or no dogs.
Okay, well, we're going to leave that because I think we've covered it pretty well.
Just want to for clarity though, that this bylaw does not address dogs.
No.
That's kind of separate.
Dog
control legislation.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Welcome to Marie.
Sorry.
Marie.
Yes.
She's there. You can hear us?
Hi everyone, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, so you've got a screen sharer there that you're going to go through. You've got 10 minutes for your presentation, including questions, and then we've started deliberating, but we're going to carry on deliberating after your presentation. So the floor is yours. Welcome.
Oh, great, sounds good. Thank you. And thank you so much for having SPCA to come along and speak to you guys. So my name is Marie McInich. I'm a scientific officer with SPCA New Zealand. I'm calling in from Wellington today. I'm with the National Support Office and filling in for our resident cat expert, Dr. Christine Sumner. So bear with me if we have to follow up with any follow-up questions. So I know I've just got a few minutes and I want to leave some time for questions. So I will take our submission mainly as read and just cover off a few of the main points and some facts and figures from the PowerPoint. So from our submission, firstly, we were really happy to see Bylaw District Council address cat management. We support wholeheartedly anything requiring desexing, microchipping and keeping cats at home. However, we would like to see the microchipping and desexing age brought down to 4 months for cats, and that's mainly to prevent the unwanted litters, because cats' puberty can start as early as 4 to 6 months. And we would love to see the cat limit per household brought back up to 4 per household. And that's mainly because we think that there are a lot of responsible cat owners out there. Given the other changes with microchipping and desexing, it is possible to have 4 cats and provide them a good life, and would allow more adopting from our centres, for example. We also love to see any encouragement of keeping cats at home. So that could be included in the Responsible Cat Owners Guide, which you guys are looking at doing. And we think that kind of move over time could be justified by the council keeping track of any nuisance complaints that are coming in around cats. We get that a lot, so things like, you know, neighbours complaining about cats coming into their property and spraying and fighting and that kind of thing. Right, so for some local and national background from the PowerPoint. So if we could just go back to the slide with the cat categories. We've found it's best to be really clear about the populations of cats that we're talking about. These categories that are on the first slide are from the Companion Cat Code of Welfare released by the Ministry for Primary Industries. And obviously for urban areas, we're talking about companion and stray cats, not feral. So feral cats are usually dealt with in regional pest management plans. And for the next slide, we just some numbers from the Westport and Greymouth SPCA centres. So these centres have taken in hundreds of cats over the last couple of years. We really want to see these controls on cats both locally and nationally, because we think it's good for cat welfare. A lot of these cats that are coming into our centres are not healthy, so they are suffering. And the microchipping, desexing, controlling overpopulation would really help with that. So on the next slide, also from the local numbers, we can see that in Greymouth and Westport, so far this season, the stray kitten numbers are going up sharply. So 33 stray kittens so far this season, which has just started. We're still in November, as opposed to the total number of stray kittens coming in over the last couple of years. So we're looking at kind of a doubling there. And in terms of some of the problems in this region specifically, when we talk to the centre managers, this region tends to have a higher number of owner surrenders than other regions, and that's because of multiple cat households. So well-meaning people that have taken in lots of cats, and perhaps don't have the resources to desex them, and then things can get really out of control quite quickly, and that's where SPCA and the owner can kind of work together to get that situation back under control. So finally, just wanted to touch on the national picture. This council is not on its own in considering cat management and cat problems. Others around the country are moving in this direction. So you can see on the map, there's bylaws requiring desexing and microchipping popping up all over the place. SPCA eventually would like to see national cat management legislation, something perhaps similar to the Dog Control Act. But for now, working with what we have, local councils are making really big strides in helping with normalising and encouraging more of this microchipping and desexing, which we really want to see. And just on the last slide, there's also lots of councils doing really innovative non-regulatory interventions. Things like the cat owner manual that you're looking at doing. There's councils who have, advisory groups. There's one council in the far north has employed like an officer in the community who helps the community get people to desexing appointments and so on, in a kind of voluntary way. And there's councils around the country who are subsidising desexing and microchipping through things like our snip and chip partnerships with SPCA. So thank you. Just brush through that, and hopefully there's still some time for questions. So happy to take any questions and have a bit of a discussion.
Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Marie, we had another submitter talk about lowering the de-sexing age to 4 months, but they said it should be subject to veterinary advice. Have you got any opinion on that?
Yeah, so this comes up a lot when we talk to councils. I think this is because it has been almost traditional, or it has been taught in vet school to do de-sexing sort of between 4 and 6 months. So a lot of veterinarians in the community may question 4 months. There is no evidence that waiting until later causes any issues with cats. SPCA centres do pretty much all the kittens that we have from about 8 weeks as soon as they reach 1 kilo. So for us, this early de-sexing is absolutely business as usual, but out in the community, it can be a little bit of a, it's almost a culture shift. So I would say that the scientific evidence is that there is no problem in terms of cat health from going to 4 months, but there is a kind of almost community acceptance over time issue that might pop up.
If there's a cat in your neighbourhood and you don't know if it has a house or not, or if it has an owner and it's not de-sexed, is someone allowed to take that cat into the vet and get it de-sexed, like without specific permission?
This is one of the reasons why we'd really like to see microchipping as a way to be able to identify the owner, because we do get into these situations where people are bringing in cats that they believe to be stray, and we hold them for a certain amount of time, and then we may do surgeries like de-sexing or adopt them out and find, after we've held them for the minimum 7 days, that they actually do have an owner, which can be a problem. I believe, legally speaking, so animals are property, and so you do need permission of the owner to do things like surgery, and so this issue of not knowing which cats are owned and which cats aren't can be a real problem.
But so if you had a private door and you had to be microchipped and de-sexed, then maybe you could get the cat de-sexed.
Yeah, well, then it would be a matter of getting it, you get in touch with the owner and get it done. We like to de-sex everything that comes through our doors if it's possible. But what we often need to do is kind of work with the owner and offer, lower cost de-sexing and things like that. So we try and do that as much as possible. But yeah, absolutely. If the animal's microchipped, it would make that much easier.
Councillor Keith.
Hi there. How much does it cost to de-sex a cat?
Yeah, so this varies a lot around the country and even between vet practices. With our snip and chip subsidy, we can in some places get it down to $20. So that's something working with the council to get it subsidised. So that's in terms of the kind of lowest cost that you can get for the owner. But vets can charge, I'd have to look it up, but it varies a lot between $100, $200 kind of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, any other final questions? No, thank you, Marie. You're welcome to stay on with the deliberations, or you'll hear from them after we've finished the meeting anyway. So thanks for your submission.
Thank you. I'll get going, but just wanted to say that SPCA is also happy to help with any follow-up questions or any when you're looking at things like the cat owner's manual, anything like that. We're here to help.
Yep. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, that concludes our submitters for this morning. So we're into deliberation. I think before we start, it'd be good, really helpful, Bronwyn, if you were to give a bit of a rundown on the de-sexing and the microchipping is not for all cats immediately on a certain day, is it? It's for
No,
if you want to explain what we're,
through you, Chair, the intention, and we've said this in a number of the reports, is that, and we put it on the website as well, is that we're talking about new cats to the area, who are coming in, these provisions would apply. Obviously, part of it, and especially what the SPCA and Forest and Bird are talking about, is education. And this is a great opportunity for us to educate around the existing cats that we have in the district, in the urban areas. So we would use that as a sort of an educational tool. We'd certainly put something up on the website. The issues around the microchipping and desexing, the 4 to 6 months, we would rely as much as you would on the advice that you've just heard. Obviously, if the vets are going to respond and say, no, we don't do it until 6 months, then we're going to have to get a lot of letters written for exemptions. There, in the actual bylaw, there's a very clear exemption. Be desexed unless the cat's fit for breeding purpose and registered with the cat breeder's body, or the owners provide a certificate from the veterinarian stating that desexing will adversely affect its health or welfare. So that provision is in there to get those exceptions, but it's very much up to you to work through that 4 to 6 months. And yeah, the microchipping, same version. I think they go together, the microchipping and the desexing, because you are at the vet at the time rather than getting another vet appointment. It's easier to get the two done at once. So that will be my comment on those
so
two.
just give us a bit of an explanation on the microchipping. What does the council need to do once they're microchipped? Do we have to have a reader? And
so through you, Mr. Chair, so what happens is that I think it's $20 to register your microchip. So the vet does it, and it has a very, very, very long number on it, and you get copies of that. And then the option is to go to the Animal Companion website, and you register that number with your cat or dog, and then that goes on a national database. So if the cat turns up somewhere unexpectedly and they can microchip, then it's got your name, number, address, all those things. We are suggesting that the register happen as well, because the microchip is great for the vet to be able to the vets have the readers. Do we have readers for the dogs microchipping? So we would have we would have the ability to do that reading as well. But the second phase of the registering is actually the really useful phase, because that puts them on a national database, and easy for any vet or person with a reader to go to that database and they find all the information out.
so that presumably all of that's included in the cost of the microchipping. The vets would register it for them.
I think you have to register them separately.
Okay. Yep. Right. Any further questions on what we've just heard? Councillor Reedy.
Mr. Chair. The lady from SPCA sort of indicated that with subsidies could cost about $20. I got the impression when she talked about the subsidy, it came from council rather than national. I could be corrected on that, I just want to check that. So we're looking at the council potentially having to fund a subsidy for people to microchip or D6. Can we just have some clarification on that, please?
Sean, do we have a situation with dogs? Do we do a subsidy in any way?
So no, we don't, through the chair, and I think that'd be something council could consider separately. I don't think it's really affected by the bylaw. Yeah, it would be something council may want to do in the future.
One of the previous submitters, it might be with the companion pet ones or something, they offered to provide a subsidy.
Yeah, I understood that the SPCA had the subsidy rather than the councils, but as Mr. Judd said, you know, that's probably outside the remit of the bylaw. So we want to start moving through and getting a resolution. So we've had the last submitter wanted to go back to the 4 cats, which remember we started off with 4 cats in the original proposal, and the first round of submissions we decided to go down to 2. So how are people feeling about 4, or do we stick with the 2? 2. Okay. Yep. So somebody like to move that way then? You'll move, Councillor West, seconded Councillor O'Keefe, that we stick with the proposed 2 cats, and whether that's per property or household, that'll come up on the 13th. Any further discussion on that point?
Just on the thing as a whole, at this stage, none of it's legally binding, is it?
Well, it would be in terms of the bylaw, but are you talking? What are you talking in terms of legally binding? Because
unless a cat's a nuisance, how is this? If someone doesn't want to microchip the cat, they don't have to do it.
Through the chair, they would do, yeah, if this is a bylaw, and they would be in breach of that. And then if you go to the penalties section, that would set out what might happen to you if you breach this bylaw.
But then on the end of it, you said there'll be no one to police it anyway. So are we not just making a whole lot of work for something that will never be followed through anyway? Well, like, if someone wants to microchip and desex their cat, they're doing it now. By putting this bylaw around, it's going to do absolutely nothing, because if they wanted to do it, they would have done it, and it's never going to be policed anyway. Well, and it's the same thing with the dog, isn't it? Like half the dogs around Westport, I would say, would not be registered or microchipped.
No, I wouldn't say. That'd be a pretty sweet. Yeah. So basically, how we work is we won't have an official cat bylaw person, but if there is a complaint about numerous cats on a property, then that allows the staff to go in and use the terms and conditions in the bylaw to actually deal with the problem. And so basically, you're right, we're not policing it every day, if you like, but we are reacting to complaints. And that's what we do with most of the bylaw. Councillor O'Keefe.
I'm just really, I sort of agree with Bronwyn too. It's like, you know, this is an opportunity to promote a culture shift and to work with this bylaw with education around it, and then that whole tagline or something, some sort of like support, because it's going to be a bit of a joint effort where people need to be educated, supported as well, because, you know, it does have a cost, and it also does have that element of education and support. So, and from what we're hearing, we've had quite a few people that are really passionate about limiting the number of cats because of the damage they cause. So I suppose we have to look at it holistically and how we actually make an effect or change. Yeah.
So my comment was in relation to Phil's point, and I hear what you're saying, Phil, but I think we've got to remember this isn't just about cats. So this whole process started off the back of a complaint about roosters in the Newby area. My understanding was on Sean's team, investigate there was actually very little power under anything we had in place to enforce or remove something that was a real problem to a group of residents in the district. So it does really just provide some teeth if there's a problem to go with. It's not going to be a door knocking exercise. The flip side of that is it does create an issue where a neighbour a particularly vexatious neighbour could be dogging you in for having a third cat, and I guess then that's a balance with Sean and his team around how they deal with we do the other tests, so you sort of follow, that was certainly the genesis of this whole process, was that so we went to solve what was an obvious problem that I think everyone would agree was a problem. We were actually legal mechanism under a current setup to deal with it. Might be someone dealing with that.
Just a bit of clarity, you said on the 13th we'll know whether we go for a household or property. So what is the direction that we're putting forward as a preference?
Well, that's,
So,
we'll get to that, we will be putting a
household preference for.
Well, when we get to that point, yeah, it'll either be household or property. We haven't
got that far.
We haven't got that far yet, but we can deal with that right now if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in terms of, do we replace the word property with household in the recommendation?
I thought we were asking for more background information.
Well, we are, because remember, this is only a recommendation to the full council, and so it'll be redebated on the 13th. But what we want is our recommendation, if you like, and then on the 13th we'll hear whether we can legally accept household or whether we have to go with property. So there's a bit of a cart before the horse.
I say we step with property for consistent messaging throughout the bylaw, and that there is provision there for simple exemption for the handful of cases that might stay outside that. It's not going to be every property that has multiple dwellings and the complex situation that Margaret Montgomery described. Clearly, it won't work clear, but there's an exemption process.
You've moved. Have we got a seconder?
I did actually miss. I probably missed a lot of that conversation. So sorry. I might just.
So you're not seconding?
No.
Okay.
Somebody else.
Seconder. I will second. Any further debate?
Just one. So then again, is it one title is one property, correct? So the likes of Pepperell Way would only be one property. Don't need an exemption.
Yep. Yeah.
So that means the 20 houses would all have to go through an exemption.
At the moment it would, but remember those houses are.
No, but I'm saying maybe.
There
must be others around.
And so what we've asked is to outline on the 13th what the exemption process is, and obviously we'll make it as streamlined as we possibly can.
It flips both ways, because like I've got a property with 2 titles, so I could have double cats, but I've only got 1 dwelling, so I guess that's going to come up when we give the pros and cons.
Yeah. Councillor O'Keefe.
As for future proofing and to make it crystal clear, so we don't have to go people always asking questions about the particulars. With also the movement with things getting more expensive, it's quite people are sharing dwellings like properties as well. That's sort of happening more and more. So maybe future proofing, we definitely probably need to really drill down on what that is.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion then that we're going to run with property rather than household, and the reason being that it encompasses all the other aspects of the bylaw, not just cat. Those in favour? Those against? Do you want that recorded? Yeah, thank you.
Against.
Yep, so that's carried. And just in terms of the cat numbers, I mean, there is provision for an exemption of the SPCA, as the SPCA pointed out, that if people are responsible cat owners and are desexing and microchipping and registering, then they can apply to have more than the 2 cats. But that'll be on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so the other thing that we need to talk about is the number of pigs that are able to be kept in urban areas. At the moment, we're suggesting 2. How do people feel about 2 or more pigs?
I'm in support of 2 pigs per household.
Okay.
If they choose, then they're responsible and not a nuisance. Yep. Yeah.
But if you've got 2 pigs, you've got then the possibility of having 22. So then, how long are you allowed the extra 20 for? I don't get that. How does that work?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how that's going to.
I am hearing what you're saying.
Yeah,
Several times a year.
yeah.
So it could be 100. How long are you allowed the extra 80? Know what you do. Okay. That's okay. You're not allowed to produce. No, look, I think if it was that simple and there was 2 pigs there, I think they wouldn't be a breeding pair. If they were, maybe that person's got to look elsewhere where they want to keep them during that period. But I think if you limit it to 2, and it's a good discussion of the range of these things, you can see how some law doesn't relate to every single. So common sense has to fit in there somewhere. But I think if you say 2, it's 2, and that's it. 2 of the same sex. 2 of the same sex.
Or a D6. Yeah. Okay, so you'll move the 2, Councillor O'Keefe. We're going to second it. Councillor Howard. Any further discussion?
Well, you say you're going to define that as of D6 or of the same sex?
Well, just 2. I think Mr. Judge pointed out that you have 2 at all times, and if you want to breed.
Yeah. Start looking at each other funny, you might want to separate them.
Yeah, so if if one of them has a litter, then they have to go somewhere else. Pretty simple. Right, those in favour? Against? Carry. So we've done that. Now we've got to talk about reducing the age for compulsory microchipping, registration and D6ing. Councillor Farrell.
Can I just share a conversation I've just had? I just rang the vets to ask what their preference is, what age they would D6 cat, and they, generally speaking, weren't in favour of reducing it to 4 months. They said they would struggle to get most cats D6 by 6 months, and there are some circumstances where 6 months is not appropriate, and they would wait up to 10 months.
Okay.
I just think we're going to make a bylaw that says they have to be D6 by 4 months, and someone takes their cat to the vet, and the vet say we don't want it D6 by 4 months. That doesn't make any sense. So I think it should probably be 6 months, unless by written instruction by vet or something to that. But if the vet doesn't want someone to get their cat D6 until it's 10 months, I think they should have the right to do that.
Yeah, so either way they would have the right, because 4 months we were proposing 4 months unless the vet recommends something else, and you're saying
unless written recommendation from the vet.
Yeah, okay, yep. Yeah. Do you want to move that way? Sure. Second, right.
Is that 4 months or 6 months?
That's for 6 months.
For 6 months, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So discussion. So we've heard from SPCA that they're saying 8 weeks. It's pretty normal for them, and we've just heard from our local vets that it's 6 months. So what do people think? Councillor
Definitely going with the vet's recommendations, and it's all to do with weight and size, I think.
Yeah, that's what they see. That's more.
There's not one type of cat that's the same weight all every single cat breed.
But why are they, surely there's experts in SPCA, why are they saying it's a weight-based thing when SPCA are saying they're doing them at a kilo? I mean, it's obviously can't be, and they're saying there's no scientific proof at all to say that it has any urine problem with them at all. So how can 1 kilo be, how can there be a weight issue?
So this is just, we've just had one local vet's one, maybe that needs to be brought back with a national vet body about their recommendations.
I just can't find her submission, but yes, it is. Submission number 21. So Brenda Kay, she's Dr. Brenda Kay, she's a vet from Reefton, and I think she's advocating 6 months as well. So
just closing remark, there's no point in all the district council putting in a full bylaw when the local vets aren't comfortable operationally running at that, like then creating a bylaw that people want to take their cat to Nelson or somewhere to get it done. It's crazy.
Mr.
Chair, yeah, I think
quite a lot of the boy cats probably wouldn't even have their little bits and pieces dropping down before 4 months anyway, so.
Well, we've heard from the SPCA that that 4 months to 6 months is they can breed in that period. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, 7.6 says that any cat over 6 months must be microchipped and D6. So that's
So that's in the proposal. Yeah, but we've heard from submitters that they want to see it down to 4.
Yep.
Got a motion on the books at the moment for 6.
Yep. I definitely think so.
Okay. Any final discussions? You want to write a reply? No. Second. You're good. Right, I'm going to put the recommendation. Those in favour? Against? You want that recorded?
Councillor Howard and Councillor Reedy, did you vote?
Abstain, please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And is it
So
abstaining?
that's carried. Yep. So Councillor Reid is abstaining. Councillor Graft is against. Oh, you didn't vote either.
No.
Okay, well, let's have it again. Those in favour? Right, we've got those against, 1, those abstaining, 1. Right, we'll all record it. Okay, now the next thing we've got to do with the urban area maps for Westport, and we've got 2 submitters, submitter number 10 and number 23, that wanted their rural areas taken out of the urban areas. Everybody happy with that? I think it's just a line through the map.
I'll move that way, shall I?
You'll move that way.
Sorry.
You'll second. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this, when you talk about altering the lines, we've had quite a discussion or some and submissions regarding the urban rural divide as well. So is this part and parcel of that discussion, or at the moment are we just talking about changing the lines?
Changing the lines, yeah.
So urban rural divide, will be discussed later.
Yep, that's next on my list. Yep. Yep.
Do we not have to go back and go through the whole process again if we move the lines, please?
Oh, I think that'd be minor, those little changes. Yeah. So there's only I think it's ex-councillor Barnes' property and then one other property, I think.
And that's you're not promoting the idea of non-urban.
No, that's next on the agenda. Yep. So
just to wrap that up, I moved it, I think that those 2 properties I know that are clearly rural and becoming sold off the brand and their dairy cows, they're just captured by the simplicity of the line on the map, so it's a minor boundary change.
okay, those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously. Okay, now we get down to the real nitty-gritty about the submitters that wanted the bylaw to apply, for the cats anyway, to apply for all the district rather than the 2 urban areas. Councillor Reedy.
I ask please, Mr. Chair, I've forgotten now the reason why, but why did we decide on initially an urban rural divide? I just cannot remember now. And certainly there's been a lot of submitters suggesting that it should be district-wide rather than just specifically urban. But I just cannot remember why we created that divide in the first instance.
Well, we inherited this process from the last council, and so the first round that we had those urban areas, if you like, were as per the district plan. So they're all the little townships that are all zoned urban under the district plan. So we followed the district plan map. We had the submissions come in, and people from those areas said, "Well, look, we're really rural. We're not a Westport or a Region," and that's why in the second proposal we went back. And remember, we got legal advice to say that it was such a significant change that we'd have to reconsultate. And so that was one of the main.
And thank you for the reminder. I understand now. but there's also some submissions regarding that some submissions are saying that they want their community to be part of, be considered rural, urban, such as Caramel or Grenfell and so on. So are we going to include that in this discussion now, the rural urban divide? Will it be something different as well?
No, we're talking about that now. Yeah. You'll understand the explanation we had before, that if we were to go now to say we're going to have the whole district or add some more urban areas, that would be a major change, and we'd have to go back out again for further consultation. Can I just, it was talked about earlier about the select committee process, and so the government received a submission from a petition from a lady that wanted a national cat management plan, if you like. So the select committee heard it, the Environment Select Committee, they published a report on the 11th of August 2023. And so what they recommended to the government of the day, that the legislation is developed to implement a nationwide cat management framework outlining that cats should be registered, desexed and microchipped with appropriate exceptions. And so that there was no talk about urban or rural, so I presume that's nationwide. Whether that's going to happen, because obviously that was a select committee under the last government, we've now got a new government, whether that's going to go to the new government. And then talking earlier this morning with the staff, the likelihood of that becoming on the legislation framework is probably pretty remote at the moment in terms of what the new government's proposing. So I guess we've got an interim measure under the bylaw. There's a possibility that there's enough momentum around the country to have this apply to everybody, not just urban, rural, and whether we're happy enough to keep it to rural, to urban at the moment and let that process take its course.
I support keeping the urban, but for the broader reason, again, that I keep reiterating, it's not just about cats. And so I think the urban-rural divide came down, and from our small villages come down to I think what you call amenity values. So that the expectation that if you live in one row, it's not quite as outside the realm that the neighbour who's probably got a much larger section might have a pig in the bag or a rooster or whatever. Whereas if you're in the middle of a dirty street in town, it's not necessarily what all your neighbours expect to encounter. And what we got in the first round was quite a lot of feedback from those smaller villages, Parakaramia and some of the northern rural communities, that they're right on the outskirts and they back on to essentially farmland. So where there's urban start and stop, and they are essentially rural villages. And so I think it was more around that amenity. What is it reasonable to expect if you own a house in Westport versus if you're buying a little place in a single strip of houses in a Granty or somewhere, and is it unreasonable to expect a bit more rural outlook in those places? So for that reason, I think that's a good starting point. It's something that's simpler for our enforcement team as well. It's pretty clear boundaries.
Yeah. So you'll move that way?
Happy to move that way.
We've got a seconder. Councillor Sampson, do you want to speak to it now or reserve your right to speak?
No, I think it's all been said.
Councillor Howard.
I was going to speak against a very strong opinion that it should be district-wide around cats, because cats quite different from having like roosters or hens. Cats have a huge impact on biodiversity. I think we've got strong mandate from people that said wildlife, it is a value to them. And certainly in this latest round, people have spoken that they want to see it district-wide, not just urban. But I see the sort of track, from my view, this maybe two choices. We pass it as the bylaw as is and then go for an amendment to it afterwards, because I think there's a lot in this bylaw to delay it around the one factor around cats. I don't think it's beneficial, but I'd be really seeking, for me to support it, I'd want to see an amendment tabled.
And you got a time frame on that, or are you happy to wait for the course on this national recommendation from the select committee?
I want to see it probably in 12 months doing it.
Okay, right, that's, any other views?
On the national state committee, that wasn't about reducing the number of cats. As part of it, it was just the
Fixing them.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what, yeah, we haven't got a copy of the full report, but, yeah, but presumably people have submitted that there should be a certain number, et cetera, yeah, but we haven't got the numbers. Councillor Reddy.
I take on board what we said. I'm sort of got distracted by the cats, but really this is an animal bylaw, and suddenly and rightly so, don't get me wrong, we've kind of zoomed in on cats. And I've been just been reminded about chops and everything else, which of course are rural. And it's sort of come back to me now. I'm of two minds, to be honest with you. But given the potential legislation to go through the House at some stage, I think we need to look at it. We appreciate that the cats are an issue, but we do have this rural urban divide for animals, not just cats. Am I correct in saying that?
Councillor Westley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Jamie, on that. Get the urban out across the line first, because I think the wider issue is feral cats, and also that live on the fringe of your rural areas as well. So there's a major problem with that as well. So we'll get this across the line, and then perhaps, as Councillor Howard said, get an amendment.
Okay, so I'm going to put the motion that we simply pass the proposal as it is, and that is dealing with the urban area in terms of the cats. Those in favour? Those against? No, that's carried unanimously. Okay, now I'd just like to move that we thank all the submitters who made submissions to both rounds of the public consultation on the proposed keeping of animals bylaw for 22-23. So I'll move that way. Got a seconder? Councillor Grafton. Those in favour? Aye, carried.
Mr. Chair, just acknowledge Lisa and her partner, who was the instigator of he became locally known as the Chicken Man. But he was doggedly determined that the animal bylaw championed by Phil Rutherford, previous council, who wanted to see this through, and arguably disappointed that he wasn't around the table to see it through. I think it's just within the sake of time that we
Yes, just a reminder that this is only a recommendation. There's still another round to go. And on that note, I'll move that we instruct the officers to prepare a report to council on the 30th of December 2023 to reflect all our recommendations. So I'll move that way. Seconded, Councillor Father. Any discussion? Anything else you want?
I'd just like a record of that. I'd like to see that amendment.
Yeah, well, you'll be aware of the process that you'll need to go through to get an amendment. You can instigate that at your will. Right, those in favour of that last resolution, those against, carried. You're voting for, yep. Okay, with there being no further business, I'll declare the meeting closed, and thank you for your attendance.